There's a family in the Philippines that owns more wealth than the bottom 50 million Filipinos combined. They control the water you drink, the electricity powering your home, and even the internet you're using right now to watch this video. But here's what's crazy. Most people have no idea just how deep their influence goes. We're talking about a business empire worth over $20 billion. That's not a typo. $20 billion. And it's all controlled by one family who started with almost nothing just 3 generations ago. But the truth behind how they built this empire will shock you. See, this isn't just a story about money. It's about power, strategy, and connections that reach into every corner of Filipino life. This family doesn't just run businesses. They shape the entire economy. When they make a move, millions of people feel the impact. In this video, you're going to discover 3 things that will blow your mind. First, how this family went from selling rice to controlling entire industries in just 60 years. Second, the shocking monopolies they hold that touch your life every single day. And third, the secret strategy they use to stay on top that no other Filipino family has been able to copy. Most people think they know who runs the Philippines. They think about politicians or celebrities. But the real power? It's hidden in plain sight, operating through hundreds of companies you've never connected to one family. Let me show you exactly how this happened. To understand this story, we need to go back to 1957. The Philippines was still recovering from World War II. Most families were struggling just to survive. But one young man named Henry Sy saw something nobody else did. Henry wasn't born rich. His family came from China with nothing. They opened a tiny shoe store in Manila called Shoe Mart. Just a small shop selling affordable footwear to working-class Filipinos. Nobody could have predicted what would come next. But here's the thing about Henry Sy. He understood something fundamental about building wealth that most people miss. He didn't just want to sell shoes. He wanted to own the entire customer experience. And that vision would eventually create the most powerful business dynasty in Philippine history. The Sy family's rise happened during a perfect storm of opportunity. The Philippine economy was opening up, the middle class was growing, and shopping malls, something common in America, didn't exist in the Philippines yet. Henry Sy was about to change that forever. In 1972, he opened the first SM department store. Not just a shoe shop anymore, but a full department store. People thought he was crazy. Who would shop at a big store when neighborhood shops were everywhere? But Sy had studied American retail. He knew malls weren't just about shopping. They were about experience, convenience, and status. The timing was crucial. Ferdinand Marcos had just declared martial law. The country was changing, and the Sy family was positioning itself perfectly for what came next. They built relationships with the government. They secured prime real estate. They expanded aggressively, while others played it safe. By the 1980s, SM wasn't just a store. It was becoming a lifestyle brand. But this was only the beginning. The Sy family wasn't content with retail dominance. They had a much bigger plan, one that would take decades to fully execute. Now, here's where things get really interesting. The Sy family doesn't just run stores. They've built something far more powerful. A business ecosystem that's almost impossible to escape if you live in the Philippines. Let's break this down with real numbers that'll blow your mind. SM owns 82 shopping malls across the Philippines. 82. That's more than any other company in the entire country. But it's not just about quantity. These malls are strategically placed in every major city and growing province. If you're a Filipino and you go shopping, there's a 70% chance you're walking into an SM property. But here's what most people don't realize. When you shop at SM, the Tsai family makes money 4 different ways from your single visit. First, you're paying them through your purchases at SM stores. Obviously. But second, every other store in that mall pays them rent. The Tsai family is the landlord to thousands of businesses. Third, if you buy anything on credit, there's a good chance you're using BDO, Banco de Oro. That's also owned by the Tsai family. They're collecting interest on your purchase. And fourth, if you park your car, eat at the food court, or watch a movie, all that money flows back to Tsai family companies. This is what business experts call vertical integration. But the Tsai family took it to a level nobody else has matched. Let's talk actual numbers. SM Prime Holdings, their mall company, generated $1.2 billion in revenue last year. BDO Unibank, their banking arm, is the largest bank in the Philippines with assets worth over $80 billion. That's more than the entire GDP of some countries. But it gets crazier. The Tsai family saw that malls needed certain things to operate, like electricity, water, and property management. So instead of paying other companies for these services, they created their own companies to provide them. Then they started selling these services to other businesses too. This created a snowball effect. Every new mall made their other businesses more valuable. Every new customer at BDO became a potential SM shopper. Every SM shopper might need a BDO loan. The system feeds itself. And here's something that'll really surprise you. The Tsai family controls more physical real estate in Metro Manila than the government does. Think about that. A private family owns more land in the capital than the actual government. Their properties are worth an estimated $15 billion. That includes not just malls, but office buildings, residential condos, hotels, and vacant land they're holding for future development. They're literally shaping how Filipino cities grow and develop. But if you think that's crazy, wait until you hear this. The Tsai family's power extends far beyond retail and real estate. They've quietly taken control of essential services that every Filipino depends on, utilities that you can't live without. Let's start with water. In many parts of Metro Manila, your water comes from Manila Water Company. The Tsai family is one of the major shareholders. They're literally controlling access to one of the most basic human needs. When you turn on your faucet, you're a customer of a Tsai family business. Now, let's talk about electricity. The Tsai family has major investments in power generation companies across the Philippines. They own stakes in coal plants, hydroelectric facilities, and renewable energy projects. Your electric bill? Part of it flows to the Tsai family fortune. But here's where it gets really interesting. Telecommunications. The Philippines has some of the slowest and most expensive internet in Southeast Asia. The Tsai family saw an opportunity. They've invested heavily in telecommunications infrastructure. They own cell towers, fiber optic networks, and data centers. When you scroll through social media or watch videos online, your data is likely traveling through Tsai-owned infrastructure. This strategy is brilliant and terrifying at the same time. By controlling utilities, the Tsai family has created revenue streams that are basically guaranteed. People can choose not to shop at malls, but you can't choose not to have water, electricity, or internet in the modern world. Let's put this in perspective with a typical Filipino family. Imagine the Cruz family in Quezon City. They wake up and turn on lights. Tsai family gets paid. They shower and brush their teeth. Tsai family gets paid. Mrs. Cruz checks her phone. Tsai family gets paid. The kids go to school, and Mr. Cruz drives to his SM Mall office job. Tsai family gets paid. They do grocery shopping at SM after work. Tsai family gets paid. They pay their credit card bill through BDO. Tsai family gets paid. At night, they watch Netflix using their internet connection. Psy family gets paid. One family, one day. 7 different revenue streams to the Psy empire. But it's not just about the money. It's about data and control. When you control utilities and services, you know everything about consumption patterns. You know which neighborhoods are growing. You know where to build the next mall. You know which areas need more banking services. This information advantage is priceless. The Psy family has also moved into healthcare. They own hospitals and medical facilities. In a country where healthcare is a constant concern, this gives them influence over another essential service. When Filipinos get sick, there's a chance they're being treated in a Psy family hospital, possibly paying with a BDO credit card. Education is another sector they've entered. They've invested in schools and universities. Think about the implications. They're literally shaping the next generation of Filipino workers and consumers. And here's something most people don't know. The Psy family owns significant stakes in some of the Philippines' biggest food producers and distributors. The meat, vegetables, and rice you buy at SM, there's a good chance it came from a Psy-connected supplier. They're controlling the supply chain from farm to table. The banking empire deserves special attention. BDO isn't just big, it's strategically positioned to capture every type of Filipino customer. They have branches in malls for shoppers. They have corporate banking for businesses. They have remittance services for overseas Filipino workers. They even have microfinance services for low-income families. This means whether you're a billionaire businessman or a street vendor saving small amounts, BDO has a product for you. And every transaction, every loan, every savings account, it all adds to the Psy family wealth. But here's what makes this really powerful. BDO has financial data on millions of Filipinos. They know who's creditworthy. They know spending patterns. They know which businesses are thriving. This information helps them make better investment decisions across their entire empire. The Psy family has also mastered the art of partnerships. They don't always own 100% of these businesses. Sometimes they own 30%, sometimes 51%, sometimes just 20%. But they structure deals so they maintain control while sharing risk. This lets them expand faster than if they funded everything alone. This brings us to the most shocking discovery of all. The real secret to the Psy family's unstoppable empire isn't just business savvy. It's their relationship with political power and their ability to navigate every regime change in Philippine history. Here's what nobody talks about. The Psy family has thrived under every Philippine president since Ferdinand Marcos. Think about that. The Philippines has gone through people power revolutions, impeachments, economic crises, and complete political upheavals. But through it all, the Psy empire has only grown stronger. How is this possible? The answer is both simple and sophisticated. The Psy family figured out early that they needed to be politically neutral but strategically connected. They don't publicly support one politician over another. They don't get involved in political controversies. But behind the scenes, they maintain relationships with everyone who matters. When a new president takes office, the Psy family is always among the first business leaders to meet with them. They offer support, investments, and job creation. Politicians love this because the Psy family can deliver real economic impact. When SM opens a new mall, it creates thousands of jobs. When BDO expands, it provides financial services to underserved communities. This gives politicians something to brag about. But here's the brilliant part. The Psy family structures their businesses so that attacking them would hurt ordinary Filipinos. If a politician tried to break up the Psy empire, millions of people would lose their jobs. Thousands of small businesses that rent space in SM malls would suffer. bank customers would panic. The economic disruption would be massive. This creates a protective shield. The Tsai family has made themselves too important to fail and too integrated to dismantle. Let's look at specific examples. During the Marcos dictatorship, the Tsai family grew by securing prime locations and favorable regulations. When Marcos fell and Cory Aquino came to power, other Marcos-era business leaders were investigated or fled. But the Tsai family? They kept growing. They had built real businesses that provided real value, not just cronies dependent on government contracts. Under every administration since, Ramos, Estrada, Arroyo, Aquino, Duterte, and now Marcos Jr., the pattern repeats. The Tsai family announces new investments right when the government needs good economic news. They expand during economic downturns when real estate is cheap. They position themselves as nation builders, not just profit seekers. But there's another layer to this strategy that's even more clever. The Tsai family has systematically invested in businesses that align with government priorities. When the government pushed for financial inclusion, BDO expanded rural banking. When environmental concerns grew, SM announced green building standards. When the government needed private sector help during COVID-19, SM converted mall spaces into vaccination centers. This isn't just good corporate citizenship. It's strategic positioning. Every time they align with government goals, they earn political capital they can use later when they need permits, zoning approvals, or regulatory flexibility. The Tsai family also employs thousands of Filipinos directly and hundreds of thousands indirectly. Every employee is a voter. Every employee has a family. This creates a natural constituency that any politician has to consider. Attack the Tsai family, and you're potentially affecting millions of voters. Here's something that really shows their influence. When SM wants to build a new mall, local government units compete to attract them. Politicians campaign on bringing SM to their city or province. The Tsai family doesn't beg for permission. Governments beg for their investment. But perhaps the most shocking revelation is this. The Tsai family has essentially become too big to be governed effectively. Regulators who might want to scrutinize their market dominance face a daunting challenge. The Tsai empire spans so many industries and companies that fully understanding their influence would require a massive government effort. And even if regulators found issues, enforcing rules against a company that employs hundreds of thousands and serves millions is politically dangerous. The second generation of the Tsai family, Henry Tsai's children, have taken this strategy even further. They've professionalized the business, hired world-class executives, and expanded internationally. They're preparing for a future where the family name isn't needed because the institutional power is self-sustaining. They've also diversified into industries that position them for the digital future. While keeping their traditional strongholds in retail and real estate, they're investing in fintech, e-commerce, and technology infrastructure. They're not just protecting what they have, they're positioning to dominate the next era of Philippine business. So what does all this mean for us today? The Tsai family's dominance raises serious questions about economic power, competition, and opportunity in the Philippines. Let's break down what this actually means for ordinary Filipinos and the country's future. First, let's talk about prices. When one family controls so much of the retail, banking, and real estate market, competitive pressure decreases. If you're a small business owner trying to compete with SM, you're fighting an uphill battle. They can undercut your prices because they have economies of scale you can't match. They can offer better locations because they own the malls. They can provide easier credit because they own the bank. This concentration of power affects innovation too. When new entrepreneurs try to disrupt industries, they often find the Tsai family already there or quickly moving in. The family has the resources to copy good ideas and scale them faster than startups can. This isn't illegal, but it makes building a competing empire almost impossible. For consumers, the Psy monopoly creates a paradox. On one hand, SM malls are convenient, modern, and generally well-run. BDO provides decent banking services. Their properties are often nicer than alternatives. But on the other hand, you're not getting the benefits of true competition. Prices might be lower if there were stronger rivals. Services might be better if customers had real alternatives. The real estate dominance has particularly serious implications. In Metro Manila, where the Psy family owns massive amounts of land, they influence city development patterns. When they build a mall in an area, property values change. Traffic patterns shift. Entire communities reorganize around these commercial centers. This gives one family enormous say in how the nation's capital evolves. Some economists argue this concentration is actually good for the Philippines. They point out that the Psy family invests heavily in infrastructure that the government can't or won't build. Their malls provide public spaces in cities that lack them. Their banks extend credit to people traditional lenders ignore. Their developments create jobs and economic activity. But critics counter that this creates dependency. When essential services are controlled by private interests focused on profit, what happens to people who can't pay? What happens when business priorities conflict with public needs? Who protects consumers when there's no meaningful competition? The political implications are equally complex. The Psy family's economic power translates to political influence, even if they're not directly involved in politics. Politicians need them more than they need politicians. This inverts the normal relationship between government and business. Instead of the government regulating business for the public good, business can effectively set terms for the government. For young Filipinos entering the workforce, the Psy empire creates both opportunities and limitations. On one side, SM and BDO are major employers offering professional careers. Working for a Psy company can provide stability and growth opportunities. But on the other side, the dominance of these companies means many talented Filipinos end up working to make the rich family richer, rather than building their own ventures. The wealth gap in the Philippines is one of the worst in Asia, and the Psy family's fortune is a big part of that story. When one family controls $20 billion, while millions live in poverty, it raises fundamental questions about economic justice and opportunity. There's also the succession question. Henry Psy passed away in 2019, but his empire continues under his 6 children. They've maintained unity so far, but history shows family businesses often fracture in later generations. If the SI empire ever broke apart in a messy succession battle, the economic disruption could affect millions of Filipinos who depend on their businesses. Looking internationally, the Psy family is expanding beyond the Philippines. They're investing in China, other Southeast Asian countries, and even exploring opportunities in the West. This globalization of the empire could eventually make them less dependent on the Philippine market, which might reduce their commitment to local development. Climate change and sustainability present both challenges and opportunities for the Psy empire. Their massive real estate holdings in coastal areas face flood risks. Their malls consume enormous amounts of energy. But they also have the resources to lead in green building and sustainable practices if they choose to. The digital revolution could be the biggest challenge to the Psy empire. E-commerce threatens traditional retail. Digital banking challenges BDO's branch-based model. If the family doesn't adapt quickly enough, upstart tech companies could erode their dominance. But given their track record of adaptation and their increasing tech investments, betting against them seems unwise. Before we wrap up, there's one final thing you need to know. Here's the twist. that brings everything together. The Tsai family's biggest asset isn't their money, their malls, or their political connections. It's something far more powerful. They've convinced Filipinos that their success is the country's success. Think about it. When SM opens a new mall, it's celebrated as progress for the community. When BDO expands, it's seen as financial inclusion. The Tsai family has masterfully aligned their corporate interests with national identity. They're not seen as monopolists, they're seen as nation builders. This is the ultimate achievement. They've turned potential resentment of their wealth into pride in Filipino success. Never mind that the success mostly benefits one family. The narrative is about Philippine entrepreneurship and achievement on the global stage. And here's what's really remarkable. This strategy is being copied by the next generation of Filipino billionaires. They're studying the Tsai playbook, diversify across industries, maintain political neutrality while staying connected, position yourself as essential to the economy, and wrap everything in nationalism. The Tsai family started with a shoe store in 1958. Less than 70 years later, they control an empire that touches virtually every Filipino's daily life. They've survived dictatorships, revolutions, economic crises, and pandemics. They've grown under every type of government and through every kind of challenge. Whether you see them as inspiring entrepreneurs or dangerous monopolists probably depends on your perspective. Are they brilliant business builders who created value where none existed? Or are they extracting wealth from a system they've rigged in their favor? The truth is probably both. What's undeniable is this. The Tsai family has achieved something unprecedented in Philippine history. They've built the kind of generational wealth and institutional power that most families could only dream of. They've created an empire that will likely influence the Philippines for generations to come. The real question isn't whether the Tsai family is rich and powerful. That's obvious. The real question is whether the Philippine economy can create space for the next generation of entrepreneurs to build their own empires, or whether the concentration of power in families like the Tsais will make that impossible. One thing is certain. When you walk through an SM mall this weekend, use your BDO card to make a purchase and turn on your lights at home later. Remember, you're not just a consumer. You're part of the largest business empire in Philippine history, built by one family who started with almost nothing and now controls almost everything. That's the story of the richest family in the Philippines. And whether you love them or fear them, you can't escape them.